welcome to No One Watches RD. I am RD and coming at you once again with some unwatchable content. And in today's video that nobody is gonna watch, we are once again gonna be talking about our fine friends over at Fema, and in this presentation stroke investigation, we are going to be delving into Fema Field Force Operations, which I'm almost certain you've already realized is double F. Could it be a secret code for false flag operations? And some of you folks, or longer serving regular offenders at least, may recall last year over on TSS and Reality Decoded, as this channel was known then, we hosted Fema Friday, a multi-channel shit video productions extravaganza of information regarding our fine friends at Fema, and we also pointed out during that time that Frosty Force was also a double F reference, and Frosty Force was a multi-state mass casualty natural disaster scenario. Throughout the duration of 2023, Fema were very active, conducting an awful lot of exercises and drills for events that then went on to become real life active events, some of which included a mass shooter response training drills, as well as buildings collapsing scenarios and train derailment exercises. But with that little brief reminder of Fema Friday, which was also another double F, see what we did there, folks, let's get back to today's topic: Fema Field Force Operations. Now, there is gonna be quite a lot of stuff to get through in this presentation stroke investigation, where we are taking a slightly deeper look and dive into exactly what the Fema Field Force Operations is all about. And out of all of the exercises and drills and scenarios that I've heard Fema have conducted over the years, I've got to tell you folks in advance, spoiler alert, Field Force Operations is possibly, to me, one of the more disturbing activities in the past times Fema have been active in over the many years. And although Fema Field Force isn't exactly a very new and contemporary operation, it was Fema Field Force activity that did alert me way back in around 2016, 2017 time that the government were preparing for something pretty big and pretty major in the not so distant future. 2024, guys, we've got a lot of stuff going on, as well as a lot of Fema activity. But spoiler alert, if you are unaware of what Field Force Operations are, it is all to do with domestic deployment, crowd control, mass arrests, baton welding, and detention of United States citizens. So stay tuned, folks, because we do, as I already mentioned, got quite a bit of stuff to get through. There are a few videos to watch for your viewing pleasure, but for the majority it is going to be me reading articles from the horse's mouth, Fema, from the Department of Homeland Security, all government websites with information regarding exactly what Fema Field Force is, as well as some more recent activity regarding Fema Field Force operations, guys. So as I said, I think this is going to be a bit of an interesting stream. Fema is a organization that is particularly interesting to me to investigate, but Field Force is, as I've already mentioned, one of the more disturbing operations that Fema does carry out. So without any further ado, folks, let's get over to our first article of the day. Okay, guys, here we are at the Center for Domestic Preparedness, the Fema website, CDP, DHS, the Department of Homeland Security government. This is a government website, folks, and let's start out with the overview. Although this is a very short article, guys, we are introducing you to exactly what Field Force Operations is, and the overview reads: the 3-day Field Force Operations, and in brackets there, FFO course, provides law enforcement and security officers with instruction in protest types and actions, legal considerations, responsibilities of mobile field force teams, and crowd control methods. The course accumulates with a series of hands-on activities that allow responders to practice all manners of learned skills that include baton holding, positions, mass arrest procedures, and riot control formations in a very realistic context. Below are some, but not all, of the critical skill sets learned during this training program. Identify considerations of a protest situation, using equipment to control crowds, execute positions in crowd control squad formations, position yourself within a mass arrest team to apprehend, search, and detain a subject. The target audience is for law enforcement and security officers who require training and practice in mass arrest procedures. Prerequisites and requirements are: to be eligible for the course, a student must successfully have completed the following courses: an IS/100B Introduction to the Incident Command System, IS-100 or any available ICS 100 series, and IS-700B National Incident Management System, NIMS, and introduction. We're coming back to those, folks. Don't worry, as I'm sure you want to know what they're about. Or maybe you're not, I don't know. But students must be physically capable of standing for long periods, walking and marching for long periods, employing a baton in the performance of crowd control actions, and performing lifts and carries required in the performance of mass arrest carries. Exception to any of the above prerequisites may be granted on a case-by-case basis at the discretion of the CDP register. Continuing education credits, the Center of Domestic Preparedness, the CDP, is an accredited provider, AP, of continuing education units and is authorized to award the following CEUs for successful completion in this activity: IACET, the International Association of Continued Education and Training. And here are some schedules for recent Field Force Operation events. The most recent one took place or is about to take place, I believe, on the 21st of April to the 26th of April this year. There was one carried out last month, it looks like, from the 13th to the 7th. Oh no, that's May. Sorry, my apologies. That's coming up. So yeah, these are all coming up. Look, guys, these are all scheduled FEMA force operation training drills running through this year. And there you go. At the very bottom of the page, there is the FEMA logo again. And again, if you look hard enough, guys, the wings and the whatever it is below kind of does at a quick glance look like hands shaking in almost a Masonic symbol. But look at the address here, 61 Responder Drive. You can ring the number there, 1-866-213-9553, between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Central CST. But there you go. There was a little introduction to a FEMA force. Should we see click on one of these, see if we can apply. Apply for training. These steps you will be asked for information as needed or prompted what to do next. So you have to log in to your CDP training account using your FEMA SID. If you do not have a FEMA SID currently, register for one. We're not going to be registering for one, but you need to select the following training. There you go, BPAC, Field Force Operations, April 21st to April 26th. Verify and update your personal information. Need to talk to a resident training coordinator, and there's coordinator contact information if you so to choose. But what 61 Responder Drive, you might have to do a little search for that before this presentation has ended. But there you go, guys, we went to the horse's mouth, the Center of Domestic Preparedness, FEMA, the Department of Homeland Security, a government website, guys, to just show you that field force operation is all about domestic deployment, crowd control, mass arrests, and baton welding. But stay tuned, this was just the tip of the iceberg.
This is an unlawful disassembly. You must exit the area now. If you do not exit, you will be arrested.
Lieutenant James Bonnet with the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office. I am a lieutenant over the Nighttime Patrol Division, and I am the commander of our mobile field force team for Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office. We're doing mobile field force training, trying to get our team ready for deployment if we get deployed to a situation of a riot type situation or a protest type situation. When we're training, we're trying to do repetition of everything to the point to where it almost becomes second nature. So when we're donning our mask, putting our mask on, taking our mask off, our gas mask, we want to do that so many times that it becomes second nature, and we get a lot better at it and faster at doing it. Because once gas is deployed on a scene somewhere, then we need to don these masks on in a pretty fast manner. We have a mixture of patrol personnel, actually people from all over the department, people from the jail, people from downtown, people even from the Internal Affairs Division are on the team. And we've all cohesed together to make actually a very good team.
Having touched the tip of the iceberg with that article from the Department of Homeland Security regarding the FEMA field force operations, hopefully those few short videos we just watched did provide you with a little surface scratch insight of exactly what is involved within field force operations, the FEMA program that runs in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security, where we find ourselves once again. Sorry, I should have really had that picture queued up a little bit better before I started this video, but nevertheless, hopefully you will excuse that very small indiscretion in editing errors. But this is the Department of Homeland Security, the headquarters of FEMA. They are sort of one and the same. If anything, FEMA will sort of be above the Department of Homeland Security, and maybe Homeland Security is answerable to FEMA, but they do work together just to keep you, those lucky American citizens that do reside within the corporate United States, safe from harm. And according to the government, it is you that is the most harmful to yourselves. But this is, guys, the manual for field force operations. This is the mother load of information. Really, you don't need any more information than what is contained in here in order to understand field force operations. Although I do have a couple more articles in one, maybe two more videos before we are done. But this is government documents, guys. This is the manual that provides the information for training exercises for these drills. Some of the things that you witnessed in those videos are contained within this. And of course, the drills and the exercises are practices. They are dummy runs. They are beta tested tests for when the eventuality comes that they need to go into real life procedures. Now, guys, heads up, this is a 135-page document from the Department of Homeland Security. Let me remind you once again that that is a government-issued document. Sorry, guys, I was just trying to put my glasses on so that I can read for you. But there you can see the Center for Domestic Preparedness Field Force Operations there is the Fema logo once again, and let's start out. Even with my glasses and this at the largest scale possible on my screen, it is still very hard to read, guys, and I will assure you we are not going to read all 135 pages, because we won't be here exactly for forever, but we will be here for quite some considerable time if we do. But guys, you can further look into this and read it at your own leisure, and I really recommend, especially if you live in the United States of America, that you do. This is information that is readily available. I haven't hacked into the Pentagon and extracted this from the deepest, safest, securest files on their database. This is on the internet. You can find it easy just using Google. You don't even need to go and use any of those sort of safe, secure, built-in VPN type browsers. None of that. You can find this easy, readily, and available. But lucky for you folks that do watch RD, you've got RD to do all of that hard work for you and compile the information in very crudely edited videos courtesy of free software for your informative, educational, and entertainment purposes. But back to the PDF, guys. The US Department of Homeland Security is responsible for enhancing the capabilities of jurisdictions to prevent, deter, and respond to and recover from all hazards incidents. As part of this mission is to increase these jurisdictional abilities by providing training opportunities. The Center of Domestic Preparedness, CDP, a federal training facility located in Anniston, Alabama, a double A there to go along with the double F. And somebody actually did point out in a comment in a recent eclipse-related stream. Don't know who made the comment, but the comment did stick in my mind. Something that sort of did actually overlook. I overlooked at this, but FEMA Field Force and basic numerology 666, folks. But the Center of Domestic Preparedness is a federal training center, and it is located in Anniston, Alabama, and it is dedicated to the mission of training and preparing America's emergency responders by offering programs that are nationally recognized for providing progressive training that enhances the capability of emergency response community. Contents: field forward operations. This is a student guide, not really too much to pay attention to there in the first line, but the second line, overview of civil actions, module, that is module 1, module 2, mass arrests, Module 3, Team Tactics. Module 4, Legal Considerations. Module 5, Protester Tactics. Module 6, Crowd Dynamics. Module 7, Riot Control Equipment. Module 8, Riot Control Agents and Less Lethal Munitions. Let me just leave that there for you guys. Read it again for yourselves, just to realize what this training, these training exercises are actually for. They are for rounding up civilians, for mass arrests, roundups, crowd dynamics, riot control. When civil unrest comes, this is the methods and tactics of deployment that will be used against you. If you are truly here for the art of war, and that's not just a cool thing that you say, is part of being a member of the truther community. This truly is the art of war, guys, because this, if you are in the United States of America, is how they intend to round you up. They've been practicing this for years and years and years. They regularly run drills throughout the year to keep everyone on top of their game and abreast of all the procedures, protocols, methods, and tactile methods to take down society when the time comes. But administrative 1, a course introduction and overview. The course purpose is to provide students the knowledge and skills required to manage and control crowds and demonstrations. Course overview. The pre-course written diagnostic examination immediately following a verbal course introduction, we will administer a written examination. The results from this examination will assist us in determining existing knowledge and allow us to better facilitate the class-specific learning needs. So the Module 1, Overview of Civil Actions, reviews civil disorder and crowd management at recent protester events. Mass arrests provide a description of the tactics used for mass arrests and the guidelines for assuring dispersal order and arrest processing. Module 3, Team Tactics, provides a description of the mobile field force formations, another triple F there guys, 666, and commands used for crowd control. Experimental Learning Activity 1, Basic Riot Control. Squad formations give students an opportunity to practice basic riot control, squad formations, and movement tactics. Module 4, the legal consideration, focuses on the legal considerations arbitration terms must complete when dealing with crowd control. Sorry guys, I am struggling to read this even with my glasses. The importance of conducting and documenting training and is also revised. Let me see if I can make it just a little bit bigger. Yeah, there we go. That might be better for all of us. Forgive me, should have done that sooner. Module 5 is protester tactics. This provides a description of the protester groups and known tactics used for crowd control. That could also, if you wanted to read too much into it, suggest they're training agent provocateurs to sort of go into the sort of crowds and act as protesters in order to sort of filter out other misdoers and wrongful behaving citizens. But Module 6 is the crowd dynamics, and this provides a description of the crowd dynamics and leading to theories of crowd psychology. So that is understanding mob mentality, the herd mentality, so to speak, how the group moves, thinks and behaves, giving that a better understanding of how to control them. More experimental learning activity, and this is a second one, advanced riot control. Squad formation provides students an opportunity to practice advanced riot control formations and movement tactics. Module 7, Riot Control Equipment, provides a description of the latest riot control equipment, lethal munitions, and riot controlling agents. And again, could they be agent provocateurs that are controlling the riot from within in order to make the other side of the opposition, the field force management agency, that job very much easier to do if they know they've got insiders on there leading the crowd to where they need to be led. And I think that is a case that was featured in very prominent tactic during the Toronto G20 riots back in 2010, and I will try to provide you with a little brief if I can find some relevant material on that. I know I used to have some, but I have to look a little bit dig in to give you that, because that is a wonderful example of field force operations in full effect in real time activities. And I do truly believe that the Toronto G20 provided the playground for a real life role playing live action exercise drill. And there were mercenary forces, the security there were agents or officers from all sorts of agencies from not around just only North America but from around the world, and they were there to train and learn the tactics according to field force operations. But Module 8 is riot control agents and less lethal munitions, and this provides a description for the latest riot control agents and less lethal munitions. Exam 2 is the final written examination. This test is conducted to measure students' comprehension of the cognitive material presented during the course. Maybe I should have written or oral exams at the end of each and every one of my videos to make sure some of you regular offenders have been paying attention to the cognitive material, and maybe that will assist me with further future shit video productions tailor-made and catered for the mindset of the viewers. Maybe I even will invest or try and take advantage of the free trial period of an AI software in order to do that. But for the moment, guys, I'm going to stop my camera and we will come back to the Fema Field Force Operations manuals almost instantaneously for you, but I do need to take a little bit of a break from recording and editing temporarily, but you will not notice that break, a little bit like Einstein in Back to the Future, who traveled over the minute to arrive instantaneously at the time that he left in the Twin Pines Mall car park when he became the first time traveler courtesy of Doc Emmett Brown's time machine he built into a DeLorean. Don't know why I felt the need to bring Back to the Future into the play, but a little nostalgic tingle memory before we get into the deeper, darker content of Field Force Management was my equivalent of a happy cat video to warm your spirits before we plunge them into the coldest, darkest depths of depression. So moving swiftly on and getting back into the Field Force Operations manual, Experimental Learning Activity 4 is a capstone event that engages students in operations which allows them to practice riot control formations and arrest protesters in accordance with the processes taught during the course. And finally, Admin 2, the end of course evaluations and graduations, recognizes students' efforts and achievements in completing the course and allows students to provide feedback using level 1 course evaluation forms. Excuse me for that interruption, clearing my throat. But we are going to skip down a little bit because this is sort of a bit, this part is about sort of the breaks and the smoking policies and the sort of training event itself. But when we do scroll down a few pages, again guys, there is 135 pages. We're not going to read them all. We're only on page 8 as you can see, which is quite a lot to get through if we were to read them on, but that references their Center for Domestic Preparedness 2013 student handbook. Scrolling down, we will get there. Here we go. Field Force Operations per 200. The Student Guide, Module 1, the overview of civil actions. Remember guys, this is a government PDF. This is a training manual for Field Force Operations, double F folks. But number is Module 1 and the title is Overview of Civil Actions. So we are going to touch a few of these because this is quite relevant to everything. But the purpose is to provide students with a brief synopsis of civil actions through current protest examples, and learning objectives include terminal learning objectives, objective, which giving a protester scenario, identify consideration of a protest situation in accordance with analysis of crowd control best practices. LE0010 sounds a little bit like a binary code there. Would that be learning objectives? What the LE stands for? Possibly, not sure exactly. But enabling learning objectives, would that? No, that would be EL, not LE. But anyway, given a written examination, the students will identify types of crowd situations in accordance with analysis of recent protests, and dogs are providing noise pollution. Once again, you naughty, noisy dogs, please be quiet while I am recording. But given a written examination, will identify a range of response strategies in accordance with crowd management guidelines. LE0010H. Given a written examination to identify key crowd management principles and in accordance with best practice. 1. Crowd situations. Crowds typically involved peaceful participants legally exercising their First Amendment right to free speech. Regarding of the cause, and lawful activities can include speeches, marches, celebratory events, demonstration, rallies, picketing, public assemblies, and protests by gathering demonstrators draw attention to themselves and their cause. At illegal gatherings, however, protesters disrupt the peace, fueled often with the intent to make protester removal by law enforcement difficult and dangerous. How dare those protesters make the job difficult for law enforcement officers. But defining civil actions and lawful acts within lawful activities, although crowds do tend to be categorized as either lawful or unlawful, they are often a blend of both, and the individuals involved can engage in various behaviors. In some cases, a small group of unruly protesters can stand out from the peaceful majority, and often compromised of onlookers who just want to be there along with the innocent bystanders, accidentally caught in the melee. The goal for law enforcement should be to protect lawful activity while identifying and isolating unlawful behavior. Sure it is. But terminology, law enforcement uses a variety of terms to refer to civil actions, including civil disorder, civil disturbance, or civil disobedience. Although civil disorder can be prosecuted under federal law, 18 U.S.C. 232-2012, law enforcement officers can make arrests based on their state and jurisdictional laws. The following general definitions are merged concept complied from state statutes and legal resources, including Black's Law Diary. A protest is an organized public demonstration of disapproval about a situation such as social injustice, a change in laws, a government policy, or an institutional action. Civil disorder is any public disturbance involving numerous people who commit violent acts that cause immediate danger or injury to people or property. Civil disturbance is group acts of violence and disorder prejudicial to public law and order. Civil disobedience is the refusal to obey civil law in an attempt to change governmental policy or legislation, characterized by using passive resistance of other non-violent means. Unlawful assembly is a meeting of numerous people who intend either to commit a violent crime or carry out some act lawful or unlawful that will constitute a breach of the peace, and a riot is an unlawful disturbance of the peace by an assembly of numerous people acting with a common purpose in a violent or tumultuous manner that threatens or terrorizes the public. And that word terrorizes means it can then be classified as acts of terrorism. Crowd management, intervention and control. A public assembly or gathering, whenever lawful or unlawful purposes, could require the law enforcement to respond. In crowd management, intervention and control, the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training 2012 in brackets there recommends using a tiered level of intervention and response strategies, such as strategies as a situation escalates from crowd management to crowd intervention to crowd control. Crowd management at the lowest level of response, law enforcement responds to forms of public assembly, including to strategies and tactics employed before, during, and after a gathering to maintain the event's lawful activities. Crowd intervention. In the middle of response, law enforcement responds to pre-planned and spontaneous activities to isolate unlawful behavior that impacts public safety while allowing the event, activity, or occurrence to continue. Crowd control at the highest level of response. The law enforcement responds to pre-planned or spontaneous activities that have become unlawful or violent and may require arrests and dispersals of the crowd. Crowd management, intervention and control strategies. The California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training recommends the following strategies when dealing with crowds and civil disorder. 1. Meet with event organizers to gain their cooperation and voluntary compliance. Determine the history and risk of the group. Check permit limitations. Develop an incident action plan that identifies and assigns resources. Monitor and assess crowd behavior. There are a lot of other stuff here. Look, 6 separate opposing fractions provide direction and expectations at roll call, isolate, arrest and remove individuals, law violators as quickly as possible, identify and track others using cameras, observation posts and or shadow teams, agent provocateurs, black ops, clandestine undercover agents. Videotape the action of officers and law violators. Use amplified sound to communicate intent or to gain compliance. Use low-profile tactics. Do not become the focus of the demonstration. Escalate and de-escalate as behavior changes. Request needed resources, but control forces in place. Consider a traffic plan. Disperse unlawful crowds. Arrest individuals who fail to disperse. Move media to a protected area, and if approved, deploy less lethal munitions to defend officers or to disperse the crowd. The role of frontline responders, although the role of frontline officers, is to execute management's orders on the ground, officers can benefit from understanding the ramifications of management's decisions on protest situation. Procedures set by management affect how officers are trained to respond to various crowd situations. Input from field officers can shape a police department's crowd management principles. Rules of engagement should be written into an operational plan to give frontline officers guidance on how to respond. Common crowd management pitfalls. Certain types of events have common crowd management pitfalls regardless of the response tier. Political events are one of those. Large-scale events present police with a dual challenge to manage large crowds of peaceful participants or demonstrators, and often smaller groups of violent and or aggressive protesters. And sporting events. Officers must manage sporting fans either at venues, sites, or in their hometowns far from the venue for many national sporting games. When fans exit a venue, law enforcement can encounter dozens, even hundreds of fans in surrounding restaurants and bars who aim to be part of the celebration. Despite of a game's outcome, sports fans on both the winning and losing teams often flow out of an arena to celebrate or to riot in the streets. Fans at nearby entertainment centers or bars who want to be near the event also flood the streets, complicating crowd management principles. Law enforcement should consider clearing the streets prior to the end of a game and ask restaurants and bars in the affected area to close early or stop selling alcohol at a certain time of day. So we're not going to read all of these. As I said, guys, we are only on page 13 of 135, but if I do sort of scroll down slowly, you can sort of take your time to sort of read out of the corner of your eye, or you can come back and watch this and slow it down and pause it if you need to and read what is on your screen. But let's go down. There's some references there of individuals involved, people who have provided information to this field manual of sorts. Crowd management principles throughout case studies, Annex A. It does look as though there is a lot of reading in that, so I'm not even going to start that. But as you can see, it's all about crowd control, maintaining the peace, arresting people, isolating certain groups of people, having people on the inside that will be able to provide sort of information coming from within the protesters itself. But I did want to get down a little bit further because mass arrests, there we are, module 2. This purpose is, as you said, for mass arrest and to provide students with best practice organization of a mass arrest team and tactics for mass arrest operations. Terminal learning objective, given riot control equipment, position yourself within the mass arrest team to apprehend, search and detain a subject in accordance with mobile field force formations, FFF. There 666 in the numerology, basic and commands, but enabling learning objectives, written exams, oral exams, stuff like that. Arrest teams, there will be a situation where large numbers of individuals must be arrested. These situations can be peaceful demonstrations, sports celebrations, or other events. Under normal police operations, 1 or 2 officers make an arrest and complete the booking process, which can be time consuming. However, during civil disturbing, having law enforcement officers leave the scene to process an arrestee can have an adverse effect on operations. Mass arrest procedures decreases the impact on operations by using predetermined arrest teams and transportation officers to complete the booking process. And there is a photo of an arrest team arresting an individual that is probably a crisis actor, or maybe an officer playing the part of a protester. And this is what I wanted to get to. There are some pictures, and we will get some graphics of formations and arrest tactics. But figure 1, police officers providing support to an arrest team. When to make a mass arrest, what constitutes a mass arrest differs from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, situation to situation. There is no set number of
arrestees that necessitates mass arrest procedures. A general rule is when the number of arrests may impact the mobile field force (MFF) operations, mass arrest procedures should be used. Understanding the legal requirements that affect mass arrest is essential. Departments must establish written guidelines and periodically review legal decisions regarding arrests in civil disorder situations. Arrest authorization. The person who will approve a mass arrest must be designated and identified beforehand. This person must have a complete understanding of the situation. The decision to implement mass arrest procedures is normally made by a member of the command staff and or the arrest team supervisor. Arrest team responsibilities are making the arrests, restraining and searching arrestees, conducting field processing and booking, and moving arrestees to transportation. Excuse me while I clear my throat one more time. My apologies. But figure 2, the police officers making an arrest. There you go. They're making arrest for the cameras. But B, arrest team members. There is a predetermined of officers for each arrest team, usually 3 or 4. One officer is designated the arresting officer, and the others will help with securing and carrying the arrestee. The arrest team is responsible only for arresting the individual. Other functions such as extraction and scene security are handled by other police officers. Scene security, guys, is of course, I'm sure some of you are seeing it, a double S. Pre-arrest considerations. Before making a mass arrest, the incident commander should follow their department's guidelines. Here are some of the suggested guidelines compiled by various law enforcement agencies. Ensure there are enough law enforcement officers at the scene. Ensure arrest teams are available. Consider the number of protesters and safety of officers. Consider the severity of the violence. Arrests may escalate or aggravate the protest situation. Consider the effect mass arrest will have on operations. Consider the protesters' demeanor. Consider if it is possible to remove only a small group of protesters to remove the problem. Ensure transportation is available for arrestees. Depending on the number of arrestees, different forms of transportation are needed. For example, a relatively large number of arrestees, buses may be used for transporting them to the booking facility, and that might be a soft-sided facility perhaps, but ensure mass arrest booking facilities are available. Hint, it's easier close to the facility than to set one up. It's better to have 3 facilities and only need 1 than to need 3 and only have 1. Always have 3 when you only really need 1, and if you need 3 and you've got 3, then good for you. You've got the 3 arrest centers, booking sites that you need. Arrest process guidelines. So let's skip down a little bit further, guys. I know it is an awful lot of reading. It is an awful lot of documents, and we're not even 30 pages into this 135-page document. There's some pictures of how to carry protesters, how to arrest them. And that was what I was trying to get to, guys, some pictures for you all to look at. I know there's been a lot of words to look at. We did break it up a little bit with a few videos. I do have a couple of things lined up for you regarding the G20, just to sort of highlight that. As I did mention it, we might see some of those tactics at play. Let's move down a little bit. So this is sort of various ways that officers are trained to deal with removing protesters and dealing with arrestees. Here's a little period of procedures, or a chain of procedures. Retain and search arrestees, main control and security, and separate arrestees. Let's go down a little bit further and see if we can come across some of those graphics graphics that show you some of the tactics of formations and arrest modes, team tactics. This could be it. So let's focus on a few of these, and once I've given you some examples of the graphics I wanted to show you, I do got a few videos regarding the Toronto G20 as example of field force operations in full effect. But Module 3 is team tactics. The purpose is to provide students with the best practice organization of a mobile field force and a description of basic formations for crowd control. The learning objectives: A terminal learning objective, given a scenario, execute a position in a crowd control squad formations in accordance with mobile field force formations and commands. Enabling learning objectives is given a written examination to identify the roles of mobile field force team members in accordance with best practice. There's stuff about examinations there, not very interesting, but nonetheless are relevant. But the most effective way to respond to civil actions, restore order and arrest large groups of people is through the coordination of a cadre of well-trained, disciplined team of officers. A variety of tactical response utilized to move crowds, rescue victims, and to isolate problem areas can be accomplished through the use of mobile field forces. Apparently appropriately trained teams such as MFF units can greatly affect the outcome of civil disturbance event. The advantages of team tactics: the very concept of team tactics implies supervised and controlled conduct within a group of officers. Working as a team builds confidence and reinforces correct reaction. The presence of an organization intimidates the opposition. Team tactics can also counteract militaristic tactics used by some protesters. Team tactics can also be used to prevent escalation of events. Team tactics allow officers to target specific individuals or groups, and team tactics using a team approach demands a higher level of training for all police ranks. This enables a quick restoration of order and provides protection of citizens. Something about the Miami model, the MMF. The current concept of MFF was developed in Miami, Florida, and it has since been adopted and refined by law enforcement agencies throughout the country. A MFF is normally deployed using marked patrol cars. Other variations include a combination of police cars, motorcycles, mountain bikes, or other mobile options, and or on foot. An MFF, mobile field force, is a well-trained, disciplined, organized demonstration of police force that emphasizes unity of command and can be rapidly deployed in civil disorder situations. The most important aspect of a MFF is discipline, and the emphasis should be on group action rather than the individual action. Characteristics of an MFF: tactics used by an MFF group provides rapid response and deployment capabilities. Unity of command has proven to be key in successful crowd management. 4 components to successful MFF deployment are as follows: planning, leadership, what else have they got there? Assembly squads. Where's the second one? There's some gang signs to look at. Where did the other 2 go? Nevertheless, guys, let's skip down to the gang signs. As I said, there is an awful lot of information. Let's just make it a little bit larger. Commands must be given in a direct and forceful military manner to show protesters that the MFF is a well-disciplined and well-trained unit. We're in charge. We've got batons and shields. You've just got bandanas. I don't know why I said that, but some protesters wear bandanas to cover their faces. But it may be difficult to hear verbal commands, so they must be combined with hand or arm signals. Preparatory commands. These commands alert MFF members that the command of execution will be forthcoming. Bring forth the guillotine. It is followed by a short pause before the command of execution is be given. An evil conductor, a terror structure. There are some lyrics to a song that did come out in the late 80s. I can't remember the name of, but the commands of execution. Upon giving the command of execution, the MFF members will immediately conduct the movement directed by in the preparatory command. And there are some of them it looks like he's doing the YMCA there. He's like, MFFO, we are the Fema Field Force Operations. But yeah, those are some of the gang signs. If you see anybody making hand signs like those in a civil unrest or protest scenario, he's an insider, unless of course he is uniformed and armed with a shield and a baton. He will stand out. But if it's someone in plain clothes popping some moves like that, maybe he's doing Madonna's Vogue. Figure 1, hand and arm signals. Hand and arm signals are used in conjunction with the verbal commands and must be given in a manner that is visible to the MMF. It will be difficult to see and hear during a civil disorder, and the misinterpretation could lead to confusion. During civil action disorder, noise can prohibit responders from hearing verbal commands. Hand signals are used with both a preparatory commands and commands of execution. Now that word once again, drink if you are playing the execution drinking game. Physical contact when verbal commands cannot be heard and hand signals cannot be seen for when security reasons neither should be given. The physical contact commands must be used. But here we go into some of the formations and stuff. Transition. Using commands to assemble squads are important for a polished team during civil disturbances. Movements and spacing within the team are also important factors for presenting that polished image. All about a polished image, folks. We need to look polished and scary. Doesn't matter if we're not really that polished or scary, as long as we can maintain the image. But formation movements. After dismounting, a squad moves into a command formation. The squad leader leads the column, with the grenadier being the last in line. The squad members are 1 arm's length apart. This is commonly referred to as the dressing cover. So I'm guessing that is the patrol leader at the front, and he's looking at the other ones and saying, I am your patrol leader. 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 And I'm sure none of you will get that reference, but given the opportunity to drop a Partridge quote in the stream, I will take it every single time. But there are some squad members. I'm guessing the greens, reds, blues and yellows may be referencing or relevant to something different positions or duties within that role. But there's a double column, there's commands, squad leaders, spacing. They must be squad leaders, the SLs. Tight spacing, tight formations require a large number of officers, but they are very effective in presenting an intimidating show of force. They are also much more difficult for protesters to breach. In tight spacing, the officers are almost shoulder to shoulder. There's just enough room between the officers for them to move without interfering with those next to them. Tactical spacing allows fewer officers to cover a larger area and is the default spacing when deployed. It is used to cover a space between two stationary objects, such as a street from one building to another building. It can be used with all MFF formations. Training movements there. When columns move, they have to turn. Keeping the concepts and commands simple is important in having the squads maintain a well-disciplined bearing. Column right and column left work well as turning commands for making a 90-degree movement. That must be some very difficult left and right training to get to grasp. I wonder if they have a written examination before they are allowed to practice in real-time column left or column right maneuvers. The most difficult turning maneuver is reversing direction. When the column is moving forward, the column about face or to the rear march are functional, but it reverses the order of the squad. The grenadier would now be the front and the squad leaders in the rear. So I guess the grenadier would get the opportunity in that situation to say, I am your patrol leader. I am your patrol leader. Here are some more formations. I don't know if that is turning left or turning right. Maybe the one in the middle there is the reversal about face. Figure 3, platoon encounter column formation. Platoon encounter column formation. I could imagine the patrol leader crying. But an easy movement for reversing the column is a counter column. It appears confusing, but the concept is simple. Don't be confused, guys. It is a simple concept. Squad 1 and 3 turn to the right, turn 180 degrees, and move to the opposite sides of squads 2 and 4. So the difficult, confusing concept basically is turning around and facing the opposite direction. This is in the field force operating manual, guys. But marching speeds, squads can be moved in columns and formation at 3 speeds: a half-step march, a double time, and there are several turning movements, including column right, column left, about face, and counter columns. There are no hand signals for column movement commands. Now, it wouldn't hurt some of you guys if you were part of a militia and did go out in the woods and sort of train some counter measures to practice your columns left and column right maneuvers, as well as about facing. But forward at half step is a slow march. Officers step forward with their left foot, then with their right foot. So they teach you how to walk. So you've got to go left, right, left, right, left, right. And then you bring the right foot forward and the left foot out, in, out, then you shake it all about. You do the column left, then you do the column right, about face, and now the grenadier is the patrol leader. Sorry for that little musical. I don't know why I did that. That's going to come back and haunt me, I'm sure. But hopefully a little bit of titillation among the crowd control tactics that are designed to round up the United States citizens, part of the Fema Field Force Operational Manual. Let's go down a little bit more and see if there are some more pictures. There are less than 100 pages, but there still are 90 something to get through before the end. But here we go, some more formations. As I said, there are some pictures to try and break up all the reading, and I do try to provide tiny little bit of humor every now and then, just to bring some light to a very dark subject, guys. That might be the platoon. That is the platoon in line formation. There's some squad leaders, and there's the patrol leader, and he's saying, I am your patrol leader. I am your patrol leader. Commands, verbal commands, preparatory command, line formation, command of execution. There's that word. Take a shot if you are playing the execution drinking game. There is an emergency line. Some more. That looks like a pyramid formation. That is the wedge formation. It just looks like a pyramid. Platoon in wedge formation. Let's go down. There's a circle formation, a little bit like General Custer, the Battle of Little Bighorn, his last stand. Circle the wagons, folks. Circle the wagons. That is the equivalent there, I'm guessing. But the patrol leader is on the outside with a couple of squad leaders, not in the middle, like General Custer, and there are no wagons to circle. But that is an encirclement formation, and I'm guessing that is for actually encircling. I was going to say bandits, but protesters in the middle. I guess the people they want to arrest. This is possibly a kettling formation that was actually something that was used during the Toronto G20 at Queen and Spadina intersection. Encirclement, that's what we just seen. There's a sort of the lateral support formation. Tells you how to do it underneath, guys. What one is this? This is a first stage of separation movement. So they move in a forward direction, the crowd being on either side there. You may be in the crowd on each or the opposite side of that. What is this one? This is first phase of line formation, close support movement. There is the platoon in a line formation, close support. There are some more formations. That's the first phase of a wedge formation, a close support movement, followed with the platoon in wedge formation to close support. So it is a lot of stuff, guys. There's some more circle formations there. I am your patrol leader. There he is again, the patrol leader or platoon leader. The platoon is an encirclement, close support formation. So all of these tactics are used and being enforced by law enforcement government agencies, and they do run and carry out field force drills, training exercises pretty much throughout the year, month to month. There is one county, state or city or another that is practicing this stuff. This is the crossbow formation. That is a little bit disappointing. Doesn't look like a crossbow to me, but that is what is known as the crossbow formation. More formations, so you can see what it is, but let me make it a little bit smaller for you guys. And what I am going to do now, 51 pages, just scroll all the way to the bottom for you. And as I said, if you do so wish, you can come back, you can click on this at your will. Even doing this is going to take forever and ever and ever and ever, so maybe I might abandon that before I go. Field Force Operations Pier 200 student guys. This is module 4, legal considerations. We're not that far, page 68. Let's see what page 69 dudes is. That is court cases and statutes of limitations or whatever there. So some legal stuff in there. We are down to page 72 here. Only 50 or so pages to go, but look at all these little wording, guys. I mean, as I said, if we read every single column, every single paragraph, every word, we would be here forever. And I do got another couple of articles, and as I did say, some videos about the Toronto G20 we will be watching once I get to the bottom of this, just to give your eyes a break and your ears a break from listening to me, eyes a break for looking at endless PDFs and lots of writing. You can see some video actions and some of these tactics in action. Oh, there's another picture to look at. Let's zoom in a little bit there. Protesters using evolution tactic. Tactic evolution. A protester tactic can be anything that impedes normal activity at public place. Often in violation of the law, protesters rely on tactics to make their presence known, to occupy key areas such as buildings and roadways, to block bystanders from entry or exit from public areas. I thought it was going to be a little bit more interesting than it was, but there was a picture. And what was that? The using evolution tactics. Protesters there. I'm guessing that is a protesters using using the sleeping dragon. That is another counter tactic, I guess, that they train to combat within the field force management. Some of these actually would have been interesting to look at, some of the counter protesters tactics that they have to. What the fuck's going on there? Protesters using a tripod? Why would you bring a tripod to a protest? What was he doing up that tripod? I guess that's their form of protest there, but something that is in the field management manual, the field force management manual, is how to deal with tripoded protesters. There are some various types of bicycle locks that are used by protesters, and sometimes protesters chain themselves to things, and also some of the ones on chain do double up as like a weapon. You can do a good bit of clubbing with a bicycle lock, especially if it's got a heavy padlock on a long chain. There are too few immutable truths today. Protesters using banner drops, so they teach you how to deal with protesters dropping banners. Protesters marching, how to counteract marching protesters. So is that a protester up a tree? Yes, it is. Sitting in a tree. They've got ways to combat that. They train to ways to combat that. There are protesters locking themselves. What are they doing there? I can't see. Blocking access to roads and stuff. Some of these protesters I've seen in England super gluing themselves to the roads to protest against climate change. But only 35 pages till the bottom, folks. I did want to get to the bottom. I don't know why it is a little bit of a crusade. Smoke grenades there. I wonder if they show anything about Molotov cocktails. And whatever you do, guys, if you are going to a protest, don't ever mix hand sanitizer and Vaseline together in a glass mason jar with a rag hanging out of it and catch it on light, because that will make a crude form of napalm if it smashes, and you wouldn't want to be throwing that at anyone, because that could stick to an individual and cause some very nasty burns. So don't ever mix Vaseline and hand sanitizer together, because that would make essentially a household napalm. Figure listing. Student Guide, Module 6, Crowd Dynamics. This is some of the crowd dynamics. Almost there, guys. Thank you for your patience. But as I said, I did want to get to the bottom of this 135-page document. The Fema Field Force Manual Training Guide, objectives, stuff that they teach law enforcement, government agencies in methods and tactics to round up citizens in civil unrest situations, domestic deployment, mass civil unrest, widespread, civil unrest can lead to martial law, and I'm sure some of these tactics will also be applicable within martial law conditions. There's some shields and weaponry there, some knee and arm pads that you can use. There are a selection of boots and gloves available for field force members. You get some nice flak jackets, a gas mask there. Student Guide Module 8, Riot Control Agents and Less Lethal Munitions. Maybe this would have been an interesting one to click on. You know what? Let me stop it there. We will come back and look at less lethal munitions, and possibly Module 9 might have some more than less lethal operation munitions. But let's go and check out some G20 stuff before we do come and check out the last couple of modules and get to the end of this PDF.
It's being called Fortress Toronto. Several downtown blocks of Canada's largest and most populous city have been wrapped in more than 6 kilometers of zinc-coated fencing. Pounding the pavements in and around the 3-meter-tall barriers are thousands of officers who are keeping a watchful eye out for any potential threats, as the leaders of the world's largest economies meet in Toronto for the G20 summit. Around half of the billion-dollar security budget is being spent by the country's famed Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Their biggest concern?
I believe the protesters and the possibility of violence will be our biggest threat. Our intelligence does not indicate that there's any terrorist threat at this level.
Protests that turn violent do make securing gatherings like these difficult. In 2001, at the Summit of the Americas in Quebec City, Canadian police were accused of heavy-handed tactics in dealing with the huge crowds. And last year, at the G20 meeting in London, angry clashes, also the first country to host both the G8 and G20 summits back-to-back. The billion-dollar price tag for security alone is a controversy the government is struggling to contain.
So many things could have been done with that money. And am I upset? Yes, I'm upset.
Norm Inkster, the former head of the RCMP and Interpol, says there's no right price for security.
If nobody gets hurt and everything goes off smoothly, we will have spent too much money. If someone is injured or the country is embarrassed, we will have spent too little. It's for the authorities, it's a no-win situation.
The barrier's divisive presence makes Toronto look like a city under siege, and some say it seems strangely at odds with Canada's reputation as a country which welcomes those from other nations with open arms.
This fence was designed to be practically impossible to climb, but the biggest hurdle at this summit won't be physical barriers like this, but whether invited leaders can get past their own divisions and can come up with a plan to reform the way the world's banks do business. Imtiaz Taib, Al Jazeera, Toronto.
This is Jackson Prosco near King and Bay. There is a police car on fire, what appears to be in the middle of the intersection right now. I'm looking at about 50 riot squad police marching down the middle of the street towards that action. But the burning car is in the middle of the intersection at King and Bay, casting a pall of thick black smoke through the middle of the intersection. It's really an ominous scene. We're also hearing what I believe is tear gas being fired back and forth between the two sides. We are continually being pushed back. I'm halfway between Bay and York at this point. We'll report as developments warrant.
Hey! Here's my guy. Don't touch my guy. Don't touch my guy. Is this tear gas that we're smelling?
Hi, Alex Pearson reporting here from Adelaide and Bay Street. And if I sound out of breath and like I'm quivering, because I am, it's gotten extremely violent down here. We've got protest groups that are not just protesting. They are throwing bottles. They are throwing pool balls. They are breaking windows. They are coming after the media. They are going after cop cars. They're breaking windows, and they are hell-bent on causing as much harm and destruction. They are now near the zone, as close as they possibly can, near the intersection of King and Bay. We're going to try to wade back into it, but I got to be honest, things have really come undone here.
Laura McNabb here downtown at Queens and Soho. We are basically being surrounded by police. There was a group of people, protesters and others, who were standing by the cop car that was burning. The cop car surrounded the protesters. We are now running with a group of protesters and just regular Torontonians who came out to watch.
Leslie Roberts is live on the phone in downtown Toronto, where the protests have actually prevented him from leaving our microwave truck. Leslie, what happened?
Well, that's the reason why we're on the phone, Carolyn, is because we have basically been surrounded by the riot squad about an hour ago or so. The protesters who had been downtown dispersed, and as they did, they came up, and I'm at the corner now of Queen's Park and College, right in front of the provincial legislature, of course, on the front lawn, the south lawn, if you know the area, and it is a showdown. We have riot police, several thousand of them on one side, and we have some pretty feisty protesters on the other side. We saw a number of some pepper spray that was by the protesters thrown into the crowd. We also saw a couple of police vans that were smashed. They are not taking any chances here. The police had gas masks on. They had their shields in front of them. They were banging them on the street as they moved. Intimidation tactics. The idea is to move the crowd back, disperse them. They don't want them, of course, to get anywhere near the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. Okay, I'm just watching in front of me. The crowd has started to run. As you can see, we have our mass camera on. That's the only thing we can show you from our microwave truck. Obviously, something has happened just in front of us. And we saw this a couple of times, that when we heard a bang or I just see a bottle, a projectile has been thrown at the police. This is about to get nasty. Because the minute this happens, here comes something else. Something else hit the police line. That's when they move in. So that's what is happening right now here.
This is Jackson Prosco outside the Eastern Avenue Detention Center, the temporary holding facility to build those swept up in arrests during the G20. There's a large peaceful protest taking place here. Police had held behind a line of about 150 protesters. without warning, all of a sudden, two minivans pulled up in front of the group, and police raided the crowd and just grabbed whoever they could, stuffed them into vans, arrested whoever they could at the time, and drove away. This was without warning. It was completely unprovoked. We saw police literally just drive up at that moment and grab whoever they could near the front lines.
We were sitting down with our hands up like this. We were sitting down going, this is a peaceful protest.
We don't want to go in the crowd and hurt anybody. So please do it now. Hands on your heads and come to the
Okay, it's Alex Pearson here at the corner of Soho and Queen, where we've been now for about the last hour and a half, 2 hours, when 1,000 protesters walked down the street of Queen in a peaceful protest, and then things changed. The climate changed as police moved in and started surrounding them. And where I find myself right now is a unique situation. They started driving back crowds, and thousands of people were basically running down Queen Street, forcing my crew, a team of camera guys, live eye operators, our security guards, camera editors, to dive into our trucks and our vehicles.
Sorry. Get in.
So now I'm sitting with 5 people in a live truck, which was the safest place for us to be, where we're now surrounded by about 1,000 tactical officers. We've got mounted unit. We've got, I can't see actually because the windows are now fogged up. So right now we're trying to shoot this from our vehicle.
Does anybody know the girl? Who's that girl? Anybody know that girl?
She just had a gas mask on and they grabbed her. Just because she had the gas mask, they fucking grabbed her. Oh yeah.
Did you see anything?
I saw the whole thing.
What happened?
She had a gas mask on and she was walking through, and as soon as they saw the gas mask, they pulled her in, arrested her.
Sorry. Are you okay?
Sorry. It's okay. Accident. No problem.
Did you see it? Did you sign it already? No, you? No, I was just about to. Right, you better get back now. Get back now. Get back. Get back. Get back. Stay on this side. Stay on this side. I'm not asking you again. Back off. You can Please give me my camera. Get it later. Back off. Back off. Move back. Move back. How do you like serving the New World Order?
Tell me what a police state looks like!
This is what a police state looks like!
Tell me what a police state looks like!
This is what a police state looks like!
Tell me what a police state looks like!
This is what a police state looks like!
Tell me what G20 looks like!
This is what G20 looks like!
Tell me what G20 looks like!
This is what G20 looks like!
Tell me what G20 looks like!
This is what G20 looks like!
Bitches, get out of the stairs! What's it all?
You're late!
Go back to your cop car! If more people do this, I might not get so fucked up later. So please, at least touch it. Everyone touch it.
Second line, we get to watch somebody
want that? You don't want to kill or arrest. That's if you stop the police, no? I said no. Okay? You want to get arrested? No. Go. You're going to get arrested, go.
Son of a bitch. Scare the crap out of me.
Walk!
20 world leaders, $1 billion in security, and over 600 arrests. It's a weekend that Toronto will never forget. Friday's gathering of protesters at Allen Gardens saw bicycle cops watching from afar as people assembled. The peaceful demonstrations continued on Saturday morning with different coalitions, organizations, and unions marching down University Avenue. But as the afternoon unfolded, Toronto became a bleak backdrop for violent protesters.
Hopefully by then it's running.
They abandoned them on purpose.
The city's downtown core was left bruised and battered, with numerous banks and businesses being hit. And on the last day of the summit, it was no lazy Sunday. Demonstrators congregated at King and Bay, where they marched north and then west on Queen Street. Around 6 p.m. at Queen and Spadina, riot police boxed in peaceful protesters and unlikely bystanders. Police said everyone in the vicinity would be arrested for mischief, but offered very few details. About 100 people endured 4 hours of rain as select arrests were made periodically without notice. There were loud cheers as police announced the release of the remaining people, but not without a fearful few who hushed the crowd back to silence. Liam Vu for the National Post.
I love CBC.
Just like there's like a sing. Yeah.
Let him go! Let him go! Let him go! Let him go! That will go on at night.
So Module 8, riot control agents and less lethal munitions. Let's take a little look at this. I'm sure there will be some interesting stuff there. Terminal learning objectives. Given riot control equipment, use equipment to control crowd in accordance with accepted law enforcement practices. Again, some written examinations. Less lethal weapons. Riot control agents, RCAs, and less lethal munitions, LLMs, are used by law enforcement to control crowds and protect life and property according to law enforcement best practices. RCAs, riot control agents, and LLMs, less lethal munitions, are only used after peaceable methods have failed or an escalation of force is justified following the law and individual police department policy. Also, personnel should receive initial training and annual training on RCAs and LLM deployment before they are authorized to carry or use them. These personnel, called grenadiers, should be the only ones to deploy RCAs or LLMs. RCA and LLM are designed to accomplish the following. A, to prevent the targets from completing their intended task or mission, and that was to disrupt them. To disorientate them, it can cause the targets to become physically lost or lose their sense of direction. Disable them, physically disabled the targets, or cause perpetrators of criminal acts to become physically incapacitated. You perpetrator of criminal acts are about to be physically incapacitated by the force of my LLM. Grenadier, deploy the RCAs. I was just simulating what the patrol leader might be shouting in a civil crowd control situation. But they also can distract and cause targets to lose their focus and crowds to lose coercion. And would you believe, at 1 o'clock in the morning, my neighbor is deciding to hammer a nail into the wall. Never an hour goes past when there isn't noise pollution, but only in an hour when I am doing shit video productions or recording work. But moving on. Some of the types of weapons they have. A CN is a white powder similar to granulated sugar or salt, and it can be dispersed in a vapor, and it will irritate the nose with nasal secretions, the tearing of eyes, and shortness of breath and coughing. CS would be gas, or CS gas. White powder similar to talcum powder, smells like apple blossoms, and that is deployed by an aerosol or dispersed with an aerosol. And OC is a powder made from crushed chili peppers, and again that is a spray. So those are some non-lethal munitions, I would imagine. Riot control agents. The most commonly used types of riot control agents are I'm not going to try and read that, it's a very long word. CN, CS and OC gases. All these agents produce about the same effect within seconds of contact. There is burning and irritation. So you know all about tear gas, folks. Tear gas, tear gas, tear gas. Deploy the RCAs. I don't know, I'm having so much fun saying some of these words. But anyway, that's what that is about, some gas in tactics. And oh look, there's a pepper ball launcher with a fin stabilized OC rounds. Now this, folks, is actually something RD has been on the receiving end of during my brief time incarcerated in LA County Jail at the Pitches Supermax facility when a riot broke out in the pod I was being detained at, and some of the prison guards deployed some of these gas pepper balls. These pepper balls, it's a paintball gun basically that shoots pepper spray instead of paintballs, pepper spray balls instead of paintballs, and when they sort of hit an individual, they do sting a little bit, as well as making your eyes water. It's a pretty cool looking gun. I wonder if you could change the pepper spray balls to 12 gauge shotgun cartridges and maybe saw off that barrel a little bit. That might never mind, forget everything I just said. That looks like something you might see in Halo or a video game, or perhaps Star Wars. Almost looks like it could be a bounty hunter's rifle. But some of these look pretty cool. There's a 40mm launcher, and the 40mm launcher system is also available in a variety of colors to match your uniform. It doesn't say that. I was just joking again. It is also available in a single or multi-shot configurations, and the 40mm system have rifled barrels, increasing the accuracy over 37mm launchers as a 40mm 30. And I think these sort of shoot, as you can see, they're sort of bean bags or sort of soft rubber bullets that sort of might break a rib or certainly cause some very bad bruising at the very least. But there's a 32 caliber Stinger there. Look, and that's like sort of buck salt or rock salt out of shotguns. Wouldn't sort of kill you, but would cause you a few minor scarring and discomfort. So there you go, they got some beanbag grenades and paintball guns used to disperse crowds. There are some more 12 gauge shotgun rounds. These can't be non-lethal, or are they? 12 gauge shotguns. Since most agencies already have one for normal use, the 12 gauge shotgun is the most commonly used weapon to fire, though they are less lethal munitions. But you can load up a 12 gauge with these non-lethal munitions that sort of essentially shoot beanbags in sort of pellets that are not designed to kill you, but they are designed to cause you a little bit of discomfort. So yeah, there's a lot about the 12 gauge cartridges. Oh, look at these hand-tossed munitions, flashbangs, smoke grenades, tear gas canisters. I'm guessing those will be pyrotechnic RCA grenades. The grenade of this type discharges. Some females don't like the word discharges. It's because sometimes they discharge things from their cooch that are rather unpleasant. But the port on the bottom or the top of the canister, it discharges from the top of the bottom of the canister, and they usually have a fly-off fuse. Oh, I like the one that looks like a fire extinguisher. That looks pretty cool. I like to have some fun with that. Handheld dispensers are a small dispenser intended for self-defense or keeping rioters out of arm's reach of law enforcement. Defense Technology Corporation manufactures the MK46H. I'd rather an AK-47 rather in a riot situation rather than MK46H. Sounds like something Michael Kors would make, that a girly girl would wear on a night to the cocktail bar, perhaps. Moving down, some weather conditions to take into consideration. The behavior and tactical effectiveness of RCAs in support of law enforcement operations are affected by the wind, rain, temperature, all that kind of stuff. 3 pages to go, guys, and we are at the bottom of the page. Participation. Rain can have a dramatic effect on RCAs and can seriously impede its use, although light rains will not seriously degrade the effectiveness of RCAs. Heavy rains will wash out the air and surfaces, therefore RCAs use during heavy rainstorm is not recommended as an effective means of controlling crowds. If you are part of a crowd that wants to do a little bit of mass rioting and vandalism to public property, do it on a rainy day, then that will render some of the field forces munitions useless. Decontamination consideration. Oh, this is interesting. Although the deployment of RCAs is intended to stop a potential threat, it can also contaminate people who are not involved. Therefore, law enforcement should develop local procedures to decontaminate themselves, other first responders, arrestees, and members of the committee, probably before the members of civilians or the civilian members that may have been affected that weren't breaking the law in these situations that tear gas was used. They should coordinate with emergency services there. There should be a decontamination site. There should be plain water. You just need some plain water to wash them. Decontamination procedures. The effect of RCAs are temporary. Moving the victim to fresh air will decrease its effects. If the victim has had immediate contact with the RCA, rinse them with water if necessary. Remove the victim's clothing and bag it. Then cover the victim and provide them with another set of clothing. Finally, provide medical treatment for victims with persistent symptoms. And in addition to decontaminating individuals exposed to RCAs, the scene must also be decontaminated. So moving on, guys, 134 is just references, and maybe 135 is also references. It is, and we did it, folks. We did get to the very, 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 very bottom of the FEMA Field Force Operating Training Manual, this 135-page document on training methods and tactics used to be used in civil unrest, domestic deployment scenarios, how to round up mass arrests, detain, deter, discourage rioters, protesters from getting unruly and out of hand. So I just want to get get back to the very top just to see where we started out from in this very long field force manual. And here we are, right back at the top. There is that US Department of Homeland Security logo, and there is page 1 of FEMA Field Force Operations, the Center for Domestic Preparedness picture there, where we started out reading this PDF on field force management operations. So we will be continuing with some more stuff right after this very short and sweet interlude.
Part of the National Guard's Ready Force, or NGRF, members of the 1st Battalion, 179th Infantry Regiment, 45th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, participated in riot-controlled tactics training given by the Oklahoma Highway Patrol's Emergency Response Team. Being NGRF for Oklahoma means being ready for any emergency, to include possible riots brought on by civil unrest.
We've teamed up with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. They're the subject matter experts. We have the assets. So right now we're coordinating those assets to meet their expertise in how to conduct and control a riot.
Guardsmen trained to a nationally recognized standard, enabling a seamless integration with responding agencies if ever they're called.
We're teaching them a class that's taught around the country that's universal. So the hand signals and the physical contact and the formations, they're universal. So that cuts down the communication issues.
Held at the Oklahoma National Guard's premier training center, soldiers underwent intensive classroom training, where they learned various legal aspects and riot control tactics to ensure the safety of citizens exercising their right to protest.
As a squad leader, I find it a very important role just due to the fact that I'm a command and control element in an environment that is out of control. Very hard to communicate, and it is my responsibility to maintain order on the line so that we can maintain safety on the line.
The final day's hands-on training took place at Camp Gruber's Liberty Village, which offered guardsmen a realistic urban training environment.
All of our soldiers have been trained in the classroom, and we've moved out from that into the field environment to conduct the actual hands-on training.
This city was perfect for the city streets and the buildings, just like a small downtown area where you have a sports-related riot or you have a shooting where they start protesting that and crowds just start showing up.
As in any situation where the National Guard is called out to assist our state, whether it be for a natural disaster, acts of terrorism, or any domestic response, the Guard is never in charge of that operation, but rather provides support for local authorities and takes direction from that authority's incident commander.
When things are really bad and we can't handle it by ourselves, they're going to come in and they're going to help us restore the order.
Reporting for the Oklahoma National Guard, I'm Army First Lieutenant Leanna Litch.
We want help. We want help. We want help. What do we want? Help. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Help.
This is your fault.
We got all day. We ain't moving. We're not moving. No. We're not moving.
So do we.
Well, we get paid. Yeah, we're getting paid. We did nothing wrong. We're just Go!
Get down! Why are you so close? Go hit me first, or we will disperse you for you.
Hold up! Move! Leave one! Take one! Leave one! Move! Go! Get him back! Get out! We won't move! 1, 2, 3, 4, 1!
Today we're here in Washington, D.C. We've been tasked by our commanding unit to conduct civil disturbance training for the other units that will be within our task force. Civil disturbance training for our purposes is forming the riot line. The riot line is that first interaction between the crowd, the demonstrating crowd, and that professional force that's protecting whatever is behind us. So for that intent and purpose, that riot line is how you hold your shields, how you move to the line, how you move around within the line, and how you keep yourself safe, and how you keep those protesters safe, either from us or from themselves. So it's all that knowledge base moving forward, and basically, once again, just keeping everybody safe so they can demonstrate their right. Everything we can do to keep them calm is going to lessen that risk to both them and to us, and that's the goal that we're after. If you had told me when I joined in '99 that one of the missions I would receive would be crowd control in Washington, D.C., I don't think I would have ever seen that coming. It's an interesting challenge. But that being said, I look forward to the experience. Your military experience is nothing but stories. And this, I have no doubt for all those soldiers out there, will be a fantastic story for their grandkids someday.
Stopping moment for people in Los Angeles when loud explosions rocked the night air and military helicopters descended to land on one of the city's busiest streets. Jim Murray explains what was going on.
Oh my God. Los Angeles under attack? It sure looked that way as Black Hawk helicopters flew in formation right over downtown buildings in the pitch dark. You can even hear an explosion. Choppers landed smack in the middle of Wilshire Boulevard. Soldiers could be seen running to climb on board in this video shot by a guy out his apartment window. This is Wilshire Boulevard, one of LA's busiest and most famous streets, where people were left in a panic wondering what the heck was going on around 9 o'clock Monday night. It sure sounded like an attack, but it turns out it was just a drill. Social media erupted. This did not look like a drill at all, went one tweet. And this, you got a generation of post-9/11 folks frantically refreshing to find out if there's a need for us to book it out of town.
I was very terrified. We had to step away from the window because we thought we were going to get blown up.
The U.S. Army did send out a media advisory about the drill, the purpose of which was to enhance soldier skills by operating in various urban environments and settings. Clearly, many terrified folks didn't get the message.
And the tests are not yet over. Officials say more drills are scheduled for this weekend.
Helicopters could be seen and heard not only in downtown Los Angeles, but in the surrounding areas as well. And people we spoke with were startled to see these military aircraft maneuvering so low to the ground. It looked like a scene from a war movie, a helicopter flying low in between buildings in downtown Los Angeles.
We don't think it was much higher than the steeple of the church across the street. They were low. They were very low. Low enough where you could see inside. I'm just assuming there was like a green neon, maybe the control boards inside. That's how low they were.
Erica Gallo and Leslie Ruiz were in nearby Lincoln Heights. They saw the helicopters and say they were loud.
4 smaller helicopters in the front, but their lights were all turned off. And there was only red lights in each one of them. Then another military helicopter came in. It was much bigger.
According to the LAPD, it's all part of a U.S. Army training exercise to teach soldiers skills and how to operate in an urban environment. The department said residents could hear weapon simulations. Officials say the local terrain in Los Angeles provides the Army with unique locations and environments that service members may encounter when deployed overseas. But some people here feel they should have been warned about this.
I definitely think, it would be nice to get a heads up. Nowadays you just never know what's happening. And we were talking about, everybody has a fear, especially after 9/11 happened. When you see, helicopters or airplanes that are flying too low.
A statement by the LAPD said in part, this training is coordinated with the appropriate state, county, and city officials, as well as private property owners. Safety precautions have been implemented to prevent unnecessary risk to both participants and/or area residents and property. And it's not over yet. The training is set to run through Saturday.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Click the ABC7 logo to subscribe to our Eyewitness News YouTube channel.
These are the implausible scenes we are witnessing on the streets of the American capital. Heavily armed troops spreading out to take up strategic positions across the city. At the iconic memorial to Abraham Lincoln, the very president who emancipated America's slaves, protesters gathered demanding racial equality. But they were confronted by rows of police and soldiers. This is a city that hasn't seen such disturbing images since the 1960s.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
A mile away at the White House, the demonstration was the largest yet. The new security fence holding back the crowd, but only fueling the frustration. And the demands are increasing too. This is not just about police brutality anymore. It is about change. They marched through the city defying the curfew. The crowd notably diverse.
I mean, we're trying to stand up against injustice. There's a problem in this country and it needs to be addressed. It's gone on for far too long.
It's very notable there's a lot of white people out here in solidarity.
There's a lot of white people. There's a people of all colors, creeds. An injustice against one of us is against all of us. So people are just out here standing up for what's right.
Looking out of place in an American city, heavily armed units watched on, not at all comfortable identifying themselves.
Are you with the regular military or are you paramilitary or police?
Protesters and soldiers are suddenly face to face on American street corners.
We're not afraid. And here we have a bizarre little confrontation. There are military police here and then activists here saying that they're not afraid, but there's a lack of accountability. Nobody knows who exactly these soldiers or these police officers are.
We're not dumb. The real provocateur is you. You are the terrorists. We are not afraid of you. None of us are afraid of you.
I'm disgusted with you guys. Look at this country. Y'all see all these people rioting? It's repeating. Time is repeating itself. How many times do we have to come out here and do this?
Back at the White House overnight, the anger did not fade. Much of it is directed at the president, describing these activists as anarchists and looters, and at his decision to deploy those troops.
You need the whole United States military just to protect you. That means your days are numbered. Your days are numbered, Donald Trump.
The days of Donald Trump and police brutality, their days are numbered. And anytime you see him come out here and sick his troops on those teenagers yesterday and gas them, and you see the people return right here without fear, then you know that a dictator's days are numbered in power.
Is this a crossroads for America?
Yes, it is. This is a critical moment. These demonstrations are not dying down. They're not going to die down. We're expecting 1 million right here at the White House for Blackout Saturday. There'll be more than ever this Saturday. They're coming from all over the country.
The protesters are vowing to maintain their struggle for justice, and many see this as their defining moment. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
There was a protest near the White House on June 1st.
It has been an entirely peaceful protest.
It was met by forces with helmets, riot shields, rifles, and tear gas. The authorities here were a mix of police and military. There were Secret Service, Park Police, the National Guard, Prison Special Operations, and local police from a nearby county. But can you tell which ones are the police? If it's hard to tell, it's these guys, by the way. It's because America's police have been looking more and more like troops.
Get in the hole!
So why do American police officers look like soldiers?
Why are you in riot gear?
And where did they get all these weapons?
Don't shoot!
In the 1980s, police in America looked more like this. In 2011, the US military formally withdrew its troops from Iraq. That meant the military had a lot of equipment and one less war to use it on, so it became available to the police. This is a mine-resistant ambush protected vehicle, or MRAP. It's among the most controversial equipment given out under the 1033 program. And we know from the data that police departments still have several hundred of them that they got in 2013 and 2014, but none from 2015. That's because in August of 2014, the 1033 program became national news.
We just said hands up, don't shoot, and they just start shooting.
A police officer in Ferguson, Missouri, had shot and killed an unarmed black teenager, Michael Brown. Afterwards, the community's protests were met by heavily militarized police who pointed sniper rifles at them as they marched.
Tear gas and armored tanks became a familiar sight in Ferguson, Missouri.
The police departments around the country have been getting a lot of this type of equipment.
President Obama responded with an executive order curbing the 1033 program.
We've seen how militarized gear can sometimes give people a feeling like there's an occupying force as opposed to a force that's part of the community that's protecting them and serving them.
2 years later, President Trump's administration reversed it.
We will not put superficial concerns above public safety.
But by that point, the 1033 program had become a lot less important anyway. This chart shows that by 2016, most MRAPs loaned out by the military went to smaller police departments. That means when larger cities today have MRAPs and other military gear, it's often because they've bought it themselves. And that's because police having military gear and weapons no longer depends on any one government program. It's now a part of how police see themselves. There are definitely times when it's been more clearly beneficial for the police to have this equipment. For example, during the Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016, Orlando police used an armored military vehicle to stop the shooter. But those moments tend to be the exception. Today, this equipment is still mostly used by SWAT teams for executing drug-related search warrants. And more than half of those are still no-knock warrants, the kind that Louisville police were executing when they killed Breonna Taylor. And in the case of the Ferguson protests, the Department of Justice found that the heavily militarized presence served to escalate rather than de-escalate the overall situation. The military and the police are supposed to serve different purposes. A military protects an us from a them. A police officer is supposed to be a part of the us. But when police think of themselves as soldiers, that can change.
Maybe not the most of instantaneous of interludes, but nonetheless I felt that some of those videos were relevant to the topic, in particular the military involvement with Fema and the fact that Fema are also training the military in their field force operations, which, as sure you must know by now, are domestic operations. These are for civil unrest, martial law type and scenarios, and the only reason that you can imagine that they would be training the military in civil unrest procedures is for the purpose of martial law, because as we just saw in one of those videos, the military protects us from a them. If the military are interfering with us and arresting us and rounding us up, then we are the them that they are protecting somebody else from, if you understand what I'm saying. And are the police becoming more militarized because in the not so distant future, maybe we will no longer have a police force as we know it, and it will be replaced by a military police force, a militarized global management force, perhaps, more than likely. Now, there is a video to watch here. Maybe I should have played that while we were talking, but this is a website, Safi, .hq.af.mil, which is a US military website, Armed Forces Military. I guess the HQ is headquarters. What on earth SAFI is, I do not know, but this is something called Energy Installations and Environment. Now, this article actually is from the 22nd of June of 2021, and it says here, it's very, very short, guys, but U.S. Army soldiers from the Mississippi Army National Guard train at Volk Field Combat Training Readiness Center. WIs during Patriot 21, June 12, 2021. Patriot 21 is a training exercise designed to improve coordination between civil emergency management and response agencies and military units in preparation for domestic response operations. And in graphics there, U.S. Air National Guard video by Airman First Class Michelle Brooks. Now, there are some tags at the bottom there. FEMA is one of them. Wisconsin Energy Management is another. Federal Emergency Management Agencies. Soldiers exercise domestic operations. Can we click on domestic operations? Yes, we can. And it does give you a list of videos here that you can watch that I believe are a part of the Patriot 21 training exercise, which was taking place back in June of 2021 for domestic readiness or domestic preparedness. They're planning something, folks. What they are planning, I do not know, but it does seem to me as though they are planning for the military to be involved, as otherwise why would they be conducting drills? Why would FEMA be training them in field force operations other than for readiness for the time when it comes that civil unrest and martial law might be required to be the solution to the problem of civil unrest. So we've got a couple of other things FEMA military related before we do end this stream, and we will try and keep it a little bit shorter than it is going to run, which is why we're not going to be diving into anything like Patriot 21 or energy installation and environment at this current time, although I will probably come back to investigate a little bit more about those in the future. But we are heading over once again to a PDF courtesy of the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA regarding military resources that are available to FEMA. Stay tuned, we'll be back instantaneously. Right, as promised, here we are once again at the Department of Homeland Security, or the Center for Preparedness, FEMA, as you probably may have realized, and to look at yet another PDF. This is IS/75, Military Resources in Emergency Management. There are 80 pages to this PDF, which I'm promising you guys, unlike the last one, that we probably will not read too much into it. But the first 3 pages of this are like an introduction to classes. Let's just read the course objectives for you there. The end of this course, students should be able to describe the command relationships of local, tribal, let me read that again. The relationships of local, tribal, state, and federal incident response assets, including state and federal military resources supporting civilian authorities. Describe types of military responses available to states. Describe the representatives, authorities, and assignments involved in a federal military forces disaster response. and identify the characteristics of the various military resources and their associated capabilities useful in emergency response. Describe the process for developing a military support, emergency support function, annex for your jurisdiction, and describe the planning products resulting from the planning process. But there's some of the course agendas there. You get a break. Here is a list of some of the lessons that you can learn. And now some of these do seem to be very much in conjunction with disasters, how the military might be called in to use some of their equipment in conjunction with FEMA in disaster response. But let me see if I can pull that up a little bit. If there's anything there. Domestic emergencies, and again, that is very, very sort of, a civil unrest situation be considered a domestic emergency. So that's a very, very broad umbrella of opportunity to put situations and crises under in order to utilize military resources in assistance with FEMA response to those domestic. We've also got designated law enforcement and other activities there. Below it, disorders and disasters and declared emergencies. Again, a civil unrest would be a situation where the disaster could be declared. Restore public health and services, and there you go, civil order. National special security events, and the final one there is a patriotic, or is that periodic? Periodic planned support. And again at the bottom, natural disasters, some of the examples, civil disturbances, civil unrest there, guys, and that is what they're training, Olympic support, and civilian critical infrastructure protection. Again, make of that what you will. Maybe protecting the government from an angry mob of citizens that are, not very happy that martial law has been in place. Then citizens are being rounded up by the military who have been trained by FEMA. Defense of support in civil authorities. There's some stuff there. Evaluation criteria, legality, lethality, interesting word there, risk, cost, appropriateness, and readiness. Levels of response, and those are some of the people, local, tribal, regional, state, and federal. Presidential actions related to federal response. Emergency declaration. Major disaster declaration. Remember, guys, during the eclipse recently, lots of states and counties had emergency declarations, states of emergency in place, which put sort of FEMA in charge. And when they're in charge, they can use any of the military might at their disposal to assist with whatever disaster emergency situation is arisen, be it a natural disaster or civil unrest. If disaster is declared, then they can use anything and everything they can possibly get their hands on to help the situation. And let's just hope that it doesn't come to the situation where FEMA and the military are involved in a civil unrest, domestic dispute between the population of the United States and the government and its allies, the agencies, the military, the law enforcement, such and forth. Deployment of military resources here is another one. State defense forces, 24 states authorize a state defense force, strictly state entities, not part of DOD, authorized to wear military uniforms assigned by adjacent general on site. Adjutant general on the site. Federal military forces disaster response, presidential disaster declaration under the Stafford Act, primary federal agency coordinates with the defense coordinating officer, combatant commander develops concept of operations in support. We've heard all about combatant commanders in that field force operations manual PDF that we looked a little bit extensively at. So let's sort of roll down. There's some acronyms for you, some of the people that are involved in the overseeing of these disasters, tribal governments. But let's get down, I think it's page 40, where this sort of military interesting stuff comes into play. But again, if you guys wish, you can sort of stop the screen, pause and read at your leisure. Lessons 2, military resources and capabilities. Topics covered. The following topics are covered in this lesson: U.S. military services, military culture, federal executive department control of the United States military services, components of the U.S. military service, other U.S. uniformed service, auxiliaries to the military services, military capabilities useful for emergencies, incident support and possible missions. After completing this lesson, you will be able to identify the characteristics of the various military resources and their associated capabilities useful in a emergency response. And there are the US military services that are available to FEMA to call in to assist with disasters or emergencies: US Army, US Navy, US Air Force, Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard. Military culture, each of the services has a generalized culture, but there are notable expectations. There are a picture of the badges of the military agencies. Part of the active army is a major command. This is the Army Corps of Engineers. Dual purpose, a civil works and military engineering program involved in public works related to the nation's waterways and coastal areas. Bridges are falling down in waterways and coastal areas. FEMA surely will be there with their engineers at some point. Military forces, legal statuses, other U.S. uninformed, is that uniformed services. Sorry guys, it's a little bit small for me to read even with my glasses, but they can call in the US Public Health Commission Corps and National Oceanography. Civil Air Patrol, US Coast Guard, military auxiliary radio systems. So the list goes on and on and on and on. There are only a few pages, so I will scroll to the very bottom, guys. And as I said, if you wish, you can stop this and read it at your leisure. It isn't as in-depth as the other one, but there is a lot of stuff, and this is all about FEMA working hand in hand with the military. We've already seen some wording that suggests that could well be in the scenario for civil unrest. What is this for? Incident management. I wanted to see if there was anything on there that mentioned civil unrest, but even blown up, I can't see. So excuse me guys, this is a little bit scratchy, but PDFs aren't exactly the easiest of things to read on your phone. Well, I think there is an option to read it in mobile mode, but excuse me, a little bit of noise pollution in the background there. Car playing some bad music loudly, driving by my window. And that is it. We did get to the bottom of that, and the summary is types of military responses and integration of military support, military resources and capabilities, planning for military resources and military management. Incidents typically begin or end locally. Success based on emergency managers at all levels and building and maintaining key relationships. So there you go, guys. Let's scroll back to the top. Let's see if we can do it pretty quickly. If we can. Just to finish it up, I like to sort of do that, finish up where we started off, just to sort of complete the circle. But there you go, guys, we can see another PDF from FEMA, the Department of Homeland Security, the Center for Domestic Preparedness, document IS-75, which is all about training FEMA agents in accordance to, or working in conjunction and in accordance with the military and the militarized culture that goes along with the specific wings of the military forces, be it the Navy, Air Force, or Marines and Army, Coast Guard, you name it, they are all available and at FEMA's disposal if they should require them. So as I said, guys, another couple of articles to get through before we're done, but we are nearly at the end of this, so thanks for your patience, but hopefully you are finding this interesting and informative, if it isn't exactly as entertaining as it could be. Now we find ourselves at dvidshub.net for an article regarding field force operations, and this article was published on the 10th of January 2022, just over 2 years ago, from Hartford, Connecticut. Now it is very, very, very short. It does actually have a slideshow that is very, very ridiculous to navigate. But there you can see some people holding their truncheons ready for action to beat down some unruly civilians. But this is as much as it says in this article. But participants in Field Force Operations course hosted by FEMA's Center for Domestic Preparedness hold practice batons as they move through a practical exercise at the government William A. O'Neill Armory in Hartford, Connecticut, January the 10th, 2022. The course was designed to teach law enforcement personnel about the proper use of crowd control equipment, the responsibilities of mobile field force teams, as well as legal and effective crowd control methods, because you can't be using illegal crowd control methods when dealing with civil unrest disturbances. But there you go, is a date of the picture, and at the bottom of this this weird article, there are some more of the other photographs. But when you sort of click on one, I'll show you what happens. You have to come up to the top of the screen again, and you can see there is, I guess, the instructor showing you and demonstrating the correct baton holding posture. But there's one more. Let's have a look at that. And there are some trainees. There is a member of the National Guard and 2 police officers, I believe the article says. Yes, Connecticut National Guard Sergeant First Class Ryan Castonoghi, and 2 Connecticut police officers practice proper crowd control operations during a field force operations class hosted by FEMA's Center of Domestic Preparedness. We know where that was held, and the rest of that reads the same. So we're not going to spend too much time on it, because there's not an awful lot that it says, other than there are a few photographs from this. But I did want to highlight that 2 years ago that FEMA were training National Guard as well as local law enforcement in civil unrest preparedness drills and training exercises. So just a couple more things, guys, and we are almost done. But some more stuff regarding FEMA and the military before we do get to an end of this FEMA Field Force stream deep dive here at NoOneWatchesArDee. So staying at dvids.net or dvidshub.net, forgive me there, we have another article to read. Again, very, very short, but this one actually does contain a video. Now, it's actually dated back in from 2016, the 5th of March 2016 to be precise, and it was around that time that my attention was drawn to FEMA carrying out these exercises and drills for FEMA field force operations, which of course you guys by now should realize is for civil unrest, domestic disturbances, procedures, preparedness, readiness, training, practice makes perfect. Sometimes these drills go live. You may even suspect that these or be wrong. You would be forgiven rather for suspecting that maybe these procedures, these exercises, these drills are for imminent martial law purposes. But let me allow you to watch the video, and I will shut up for a second to let you do so.
going to be squad echo or platoon echo the squad.
Now listen, folks, there's two ways to give this command. There's one. Feet facing forward. Gun can't off. All right. Now, Mike told you yesterday. Move there. Move there. Where's the line? I'll deal with it. That's why we got it. I'll deal. All right, 3-4. Charlotte, don't screw it up. All right, and you should be up there. Once you two, like, if I'm not, I'll you move one step to the right. Now, move there. Go. Move back. Move back.
Well, there you go. That was the video, and the very, very short paragraph in this article reads that soldiers from the 211th Military Police Battalion trained alongside with members from the 3rd Military Police Regiment of the Canadian Armed Forces. It was a joint nation venture. Maybe they're expecting a little bit of trouble at the border there, which is why they wanted to work alongside Canadian forces for combined efforts in some border-related civil disturbance, civil unrest scenario, or maybe it is part of a larger scale operation for global force management. But that was another little short video that I did want to show you, and the fact that this was from 2016, a little while ago now, nearly 10 years, actually 8 years to be precise, but that just shows you that FEMA were working alongside the Canadian and the United States military in a joint venture exercise. Stay tuned, guys. We do have a little bit of stuff, and as I did say, we are almost done. I promise you there is not that much to get through, and I can also assure you we have no more PDFs, unless of course I do find something before I do finish all my recording and surface skimming further investigations into the subject of FEMA Field Force operations. Now we find ourselves at northcom.mil, a military website once again, and you can see at the top then, Joint Task Force Civil Support, I couldn't read that because my screen recorder button was over that final word, although you can't see that, but here you can see FEMA, State, Military, Guard, CAP, volunteers, rehearse a whole lot of government crisis response. And this article is by Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Karen Roganoff, a Joint Task Force civil support operative, I guess. You can download some high-resolution photographs if you so desire. And there is one of two. You can see a couple of boat people, what looks to be on a roof or on a boat, perhaps, a raft, wearing red hats. There are some people wearing vests, someone on a stretcher, some rubble in the background. Is that a body lying on top of the rubble? Can't make it out. Here is picture 3, some people in a tent administering first aid by the looks of things. Somebody taking the blood pressure there. Picture 4, picture 5, people in maybe in an helicopter. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, there is a helicopter, so that probably is what they were in. There's picture 6 there. A couple of guys looking at computers. A woman administering a bandage to a guy that looks like comic book guy from The Simpsons, if it is in fact a guy, who knows. As a man stood outside or in front of what looks to be a aircraft wing and engine. There's a man shaking another man's hand, a man in a suit, man in a military uniform, some men in military uniforms talking about stuff, and some people looking at computers. So there were the 12 photographs. Don't tell me I skimped on that there. You can actually download those in high resolution if you want to. But this article actually is from May 31st of 2019, and almost 4 years ago. And why this is particularly interesting, guys, is because it says they were training for a whole, volunteers were rehearsing for a whole of government crisis response. It wasn't just one thing, but one of the things they were training for, and what they mentioned in this article, is an earthquake scenario on the new Madrid fault line at time of recording, which is April something 2024. We recently did have a series of earthquakes on the Madrid fault line over and during the weekend of the total solar eclipse. But members, back to the article, of the Mississippi Task Force Urban Search and Rescue Team trained for a rooftop rescue in May 31st of 2019 at Camp McCain in Mississippi. The training was part of Ardent Century 2019. Again, that's something we might have to look at a further date, but for trying to keep this as swift and on topic as we can, we will leave that one out of this stream. But I'm sure there is no good going on there. But they were training as part of what was Ardent Century in 2019, a North American Aerospace Defense Command and a U.S. Northern Command joint force exercise to test the Mississippi National Guard. Again, FEMA working in conjunction with the military, and they were testing the military, the National Guard, in a response to a 7.7 magnitude earthquake along the new Madrid fault line near Memphis, Tennessee. United States Army National Guard photo by PFC Austin Eldridge, USS Eldridge, any relation perhaps. But in Nashville on June the 18th of 2019 is again part of Ardent Century, AS-19. Guys, we will look at, I promise you, at a further date. A response to a simulated devastating earthquake took place on May 29th through to June 5th in various locations across the United States. It wasn't just one, it was multiple locations in multiple agencies, law enforcement, military, would have been involved in each and every one of those exercises, and there were various ones in different locations around the United States. But the article goes on to say, we will not be late to need when our federal partners require our support, said Air Force General Terrence J. O'Shaughnessy. That's a strange word, but he is the North American Aerospace Defense Command and the United States Northern Command, US Northcom commander. But AS-19 was, it sounds a little bit MK Ultra to me, but AS-19 was a US Northern Command led exercise that supported FEMA's exercise Shaken Fury, running concurrently, and some National Guard units participated, responding within the catastrophic earthquake scenario through their exercise Vigilant Guards. Vigilant Guard, AS-19, all of these things seem to be all working together towards one larger, greater goal, it would seem to me. Don't know about you folks watching. Of course, as always, you are reminded, make of this what you will, and I do appreciate any thoughts, opinions, or contribution contextually towards the topic that you may be having, what all of this could be all about. But the article goes on to read that they all folded into the goal of supporting the National Response Framework for a coordinated response and recovery by interagency partners, global force management, if it was called upon to provide help to civil authorities, according to Hans Lagerschlut. a joint task force command supervisor, I'm guessing. But Shaken Fury simulated a no-notice NN neo-Nazi catastrophic earthquake along the New Madrid seismic zone that impacted 8 states, included Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. IS-19 was mostly a command post exercise accomplished from command centers on computers using simulated troop movements, and Vigilant Guard provided the hands-on activities like the rooftop water resources of people role-playing as survivors and more. Most of the training took place in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Missouri, with people in various roles participating from locations in Washington, D.C., Colorado, Texas, Virginia, Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri, and Florida. The Georgia National Guard, to include the Seaborne Enhanced Response (CBRNE) Enhanced Response Force, also trained supporting Shaken Fury, with almost 250 Air and Army National Guard members testing the synergy necessary to support the community during natural disasters. But the United States Army North served as the overall commander of the land forces responding to the simulated earthquake, and for the first time employed Task Force 51, another thing we're probably going to have to look into at a later date. Maybe this has a sequel where we will look into some of these other agencies that have been mentioned, or operations, projects, training exercises that have been featured in this stream. But as geographically separated subordinate joint task forces to test the ability of all 3 units to conduct distributed command and control in this very complex situation. The state partners included the Mississippi Army Guard and the Tennessee Air and Army National Guard. Vigilant Guard is a U.S. Northern Command and National Guard Bureau-sponsored event that simulates a real-world natural disaster to improve the emergency response and relief. This was vital training for us as part of an integrated response to meet the demands of the nation if ever we are called upon to provide assistance, said Army Major General Bill Hall. At least he had an ordinary name. And we hope that a catastrophic event never happens, but if it does, at least the training and planning that goes on year-round will provide life-saving and life-sustaining capabilities for a whole of government response. But the Tennessee Volunteer Challenge Academy provided victim role players. Another word for that would be crisis actors, but they're calling them victim role players. Good work if you can get it. So the Tennessee Air Force, the Tennessee Air National Guard medical technicians could rehearse their mass casualty assistance skills. And that was a quote from Air Force Master Sergeant Jeremy Cornelius. And he is also a public affairs superintendent with the 118th Wing Tennessee Air National Guard. Guard members also honed their skills using incident awareness and assessment tools. One such capability was the MQ-9 remotely piloted aircraft, which can be used during domestic operations to quickly respond to a natural or a man-made disaster. A terrorist attack, maybe a civil disturbance disaster, and that's a drone, guys, if you're wondering what that was about, a remotely piloted aircraft. When civilian lives are are at risk. But the Tennessee Air National Guard flew an MQ-9 over Tennessee during exercise Shaken Fury, and the results were phenomenal, said yet another member of the military. This time it was Air Force Colonel Keith Albritton, and he is also part of the 118th Wing Command. But they are used to respond to lost hikers, wildfires, flooding, tornadoes, hurricanes, and other natural disasters. These aircraft help emergency responders get to the incident faster and save lives, avert human suffering, stabilize incidents, and mitigate property damage. When conducting such activities, the total force military accomplishes its mission in strict adherence with principles of the Constitution and public law. The defense coordinating officer and the elements in regions of 4 states and dual status are commanders from Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Mississippi, and they took part as well as the Regional 7 Emergency Preparedness Liaison Officers and other liaisons, according to the United States Army North. And these supporters working in various states work together to ensure Fema, the supported lead federal agency in the scenario, and they had all the resources they needed to accomplish the disaster relief mission in a safe manner, said that unpronounceable person, Lagschlut. Members of a Civil Air Patrol Mobile Operation Center also participated their skills during exercise AS-19 as an auxiliary official force of the Air Force and trained alongside the Mississippi National Guard and multiple local, state, and federal agencies to enhance readiness for natural disasters. Also in that year in Florida, the continental United States North American Aerospace Defense Command region, the 1st Air Force, the air component to the United States Northern Command Air Forces Northern, provided support through the 601st Air Force Operations Center, known as America's AOC, and among other 1AF support, the 1AF capabilities included search and rescue, aerial imagery assessment and analysis, medical personnel, airlift, and other important support functions. Very large operation was going on back in 29. All the military, all this, I mean, you're seeing it for yourself and you're hearing it from my words, but it's coming from a government agency that a lot of multi-state interagencies were working together as one in this AS-19 exercise for a variety of things, including an earthquake. But the national defense, this is the final paragraph, guys. We skipped over one there. The devastation of an earthquake comes without warning, said Colonel John Grimes, and he is an acting CONAR 1AF operations director, and he mentioned crisis response considerations during the training, like the need for timeliness and the challenges presented achieving this because of the impacts to infrastructure like bridges and airfields in the affected area. And now we get to the final paragraphs. Sorry for me jumping the gun a little bit there, but it finalizes by saying the National Defense Strategy's number one defense object is defending the homeland from attack, which includes protecting our critical infrastructure and supporting civil authorities. Now, it didn't say defending the homeland from natural disasters. It said from attack, but it is protecting our, let me reread that, protecting our critical infrastructure and supporting civil authorities in response to catastrophic incidents, said Hall. As such, we support the United States Northern
Northern Command in that Homeland Defense mission, including the development of the partnerships we will need to be successful. During this training, we strengthened relationships with our interagency partners. Global Force Management, folks, is in the front of my mind. Let me know what you think. But including the National Guard, as we train together to rapidly respond to a robust exercise scenario. And there's a bunch of credits and stuff at the bottom there. But as I said, there was an article from the military website from Northcom about FEMA training with state military guard CAP volunteers to rehearse whole of government's crisis response. Almost done, folks. We are at the final article about to be read, and then we will wrap this up. So the last article of the stream comes once again from the Department of Homeland Security, a government website, the Center of Domestic Preparedness. Now, I don't actually have a time or date stamp for this article, but you can see there is a photograph flipping between your eyes. It's not anything I'm doing. That is a part of the nifty features that FEMA have built into this article. So maybe it is a little bit recent because I haven't seen that feature in any of the other articles that we have recently looked at previously in this stream. But Alabama State Troopers prepare field forces. I mean, you could almost read into that if you wanted to. Alabama State Troopers prepare false flags. But this is what this article says. It has got a few more paragraphs than the previous DVids hub articles, but this one starts out by saying that more than 200 Alabama State Troopers will complete training at FEMA's Center for Domestic Preparedness early this year, although we don't have a date for that, so I can't confirm you how recent or how long ago this happened. But Alabama's Department of Public Safety plans to send more than half of the state's troopers through training over the next several weeks. So this wasn't just a one-off training exercise. It was one of many training exercises that would see half of Alabama's state troopers going through this training exercise with FEMA, and then I'm guessing that they can go back to their relative departments and train the other half people once they've learned and passed and got their certifications from FEMA that they are completed and passed the bar during those test drills and exercises. But the state, the article continues to say, already has sent more than 100 through the fully funded FF again there, folks, training, and the state troopers are attending the Field Force Operations in brackets FFO. You know that, people. You've been watching since the start, hopefully. But there is the FFO course that is designed to provide law enforcement officers the knowledge to successfully employ crowd control measures during civil disorders. And the article goes on to read that we, I guess that is Alabama State Police, trained for situations that can hopefully be resolved peacefully. First and foremost, another sort of double F there for you folks, in a professional manner, said Trooper Chad Bright. I don't know why I read it in the southern accent, but Alabama, is Chad a popular name in Alabama? I'm sure that guy's got a flat top haircut. Sounds like he would. But the training was excellent, says Chad, or he goes on to say that I don't think it could have been any better. Our agency will benefit. Each year, Alabama's troopers support 3 major events that could require crowd control. 2 races at the Talladega Speedway and Mardi Gras conducted in Montgomery and Mobile.
Troopers throughout the state converge on each of these events and work together to maintain order and uphold Alabama's state laws. But we need to be able to respond and come together as a single unit. Global force management is all about the military, emergency agencies, law enforcement, first responders coming together as a single unit. And that was something that Chad Bright also said, and he went on to say furthermore that training provided a solid base to work from and respond as a team. Any training that we receive to serve and assist the public and prevent disorder has a good purpose, said Trooper Stephen McWaters. We are more prepared if something does happen, and the training here provided a real-life experience, allowing us to put our skills to use with real people acting as protesters. Staging an event, guys, if or not that staged event was purposed for mainstream media to pass off as a real event and not a training exercise or a drill, who knows? But this was the first time many of the troopers had met each other, giving them all a chance to receive identical training, building a clone trooper army there in Alabama that can act effectively as one. But this training was definitely needed for our special operation troopers and our tactical team, said Sergeant David Stewart, a supervisor with the Highway Patrol headquarters staff in Montgomery. We also included troopers from the driver's license division who may fit the DVLA are getting trained in field force operation manuals, methods and tactics for crowd control in civil disturbance scenarios. Let that sink in, folks. The DVLA are going to be assisting FEMA with the roundup. But these teams may be required to respond to an unlawful protest, and having everyone receive the same training helps communication to an orderly response. The training provided by the Center of Domestic Preparedness is designed for emergency response providers, emergency managers, and other government officials from state, local, and tribal governments. We just saw a PDF mentioning how trainees and agents working for FEMA can learn and understand how they can utilize the amenities of any one or all of those aforementioned agencies if the situation arises and the situation calls for their assistance. Law enforcement officers also is on that list, and with the knowledge to effectively manage large demonstrations, protect property and the safety of others. We are fortunate to have the CDP in our state, even though it is a national training facility, said Stewart. The funding also saved our state money that can be put to use in other critical areas. It has been a challenge to make the training happen because we are already short-handed, but those who have attended say it exceeded their expectations. Other states need to check into the Center of Domestic Preparedness. Training at the Center of Domestic Preparedness campus is a federally funded, another FF to almost finish up on, folks, and the students' training, lodging, the lodging, the travel and meals are all provided at no cost to state, local and tribal emergency response professionals. It's the US taxpayer that are fitting the bill for all of those things. No needs to put your hand in the pockets, corporate United States government, but that is all paid for as part of the training exercise courtesy of the taxpayers and tribal emergency response professionals or their agencies, saving their state and municipality dollars. For more information on the CDP's specialized programs and courses, visit their website at http://cdp.dhs.gov dot, and there you can see at the bottom it is FEMA, Center of Domestic Preparedness, and all the other information linked to them at the bottom there. So that is hopefully the last article. We are about to wrap this up, guys, so hopefully you have found this informative. I'm not going to say it was enjoyable knowing how your government is spending United States taxpayers' dollars training military and law enforcement personnel to work as one in roundup, mass arrest, crowd control in civil unrest scenarios. So we are going to wrap things up here at good old Google, and why I want to do that is I can just show you that how easy some of this information is for you to find and further research and look into on your own if you so wish. And again, you don't have to take my word for it, although I read it, I give you all the details, read some of the stuff in those PDFs. There's a lot of stuff to look into it, and maybe one or two of you might be interested, and this is why we are wrapping it up here at Google. You may click on one or two things just to sort of skim the contents of what is involved. But the other reason that I wanted to show you this, I mean, although in the bar it does say FEMA Force Operations 2024, you can just put FEMA Force Operations, and all this information that I featured in this video will be available to you, and there you can see the article that we started out with, the FEMA Force Operations Center for Domestic Preparedness, and we go down, there's some information from Wisconsin State Police, again a government website. FEMA Force Operations being held in Wisconsin. There's the FEMA website talking about field operations. There is the PDF that we read at length. That was 180 odd pages, I believe. Here's Wisconsin again, mention about State Patrol Academy. Also working with FEMA Force Field Force Operations there, a little interstate, some pictures of stuff. FEMA disaster work force actions needed to improve hiring. Mudrock, we're going to come and actually click on that in a second. The Field Force Manual offers protesters insights into the future of policing. LinkedIn logistics needed logistics lead FEMA Field Force Operations Directorate, and that is on LinkedIn, nothing government or military related there. And we go down, you can see there's a National Lawyer Guide there, FEMA Force Field Force Operations. Home National Mass Care Strategy 2024. That is for another day, folks, but you might want to look in there. What exactly is the National Mass Care Strategy? To be honest, I don't really know that much yet. This is something I come across while researching field force operations. But that is it to the bottom of that list. As I say, guys, all you need to do to find this information is put FEMA Field Force Operations in, and that is in the All section. When I click on News, there are two articles here, and there is the one from Mudrock that I clicked in, and if it will open for me swiftly and quickly. No, it won't. Of course it won't, because I'm recording. There you go. Muckrock. And this was dated back in 2016, again around the time that I was alerted to the fact that FEMA were conducting these drills and exercises with law enforcement and military, as well as a joint national exercise with the Canadian and United States military, as featured in this stream. But this article says that the FEMA Field Force Manual offers protests insights into the future of crowd control. Trading modules sent to North Dakota during a no-DAPL describe protesters and how to control them, which is exactly what I've showed you in this stream. But let's just read the first paragraph. Through construction on the Dakota Access Pipeline has halted for now, the lessons for law enforcement and protesters are still pre-correlating. For the former, they're likely to find themselves one day studying the event as they prepare for future mass gatherings, maybe in a guide just like the one distributed by Fema to North Dakota law enforcement in September. But it was obtained by Unicorn Riot via a request to the North Dakota Department of Corrections, an agency with far fewer individuals in its custody than attended the protest at Standing Rock. The manual is the Field Force Operations Training Program for students, a crash course in 8 parts on how to deal with mixed crowd and lawful and unlawful dissenters. And this article does go on. I'm not going to read any more to show and highlight a few of the things that I have highlighted you a little bit more at great lengths in this stream than this article at Muckrock. Let's come back out of there. But this one at Unicorn Riot is very interesting and a little bit misleading. Come on, open up Unicorn Riot. Nice thumbnail there, I must admit. But here it says at the top, the FEMA trains local police for field force crackdowns. And this again was November 16, 2016. And this was by Dan Fight and Chris Shiano, members of Unicorn Riot, and it goes on to say that they obtained the federal training manual, the Field Force Operations, from the Federal Emergency Management Agency Center of Deep Preparedness for Domestic Preparedness. The federal government uses this document to train law enforcement in techniques for quelling protesters, and it was acquired during our reporting on direct actions against the Dakota Access Pipeline when we filed a records request to the North Dakota Department of Corrections. Now I think somewhere, or I thought somewhere, it did mention they obtained this through a Freedom of Information Act, which I think I may have imagined and could have possibly thought that I saw it, but we're not going to read too much more. Then I did say we'd read our article before. We had read our last article, but there is a video from the Alabama State Troopers.
Alabama State Troopers are getting special training at the Center for Domestic Preparedness. More than 60 troopers are participating in a hands-on exercise as part of a 3-day field force operations course at the CDP. The course provides state and local law enforcement officers with the knowledge and skills necessary to prepare for and successfully lessen threat incidents involving civil disorder.
Most police officers every day work by themselves. One officer, one patrol car, they take a call. When they deal with large-scale events and crowd management, they have to learn to work together as a team, very disciplined. So we run it very paramilitary. They learn to follow strict orders and command and control through the platoon lieutenant, through their squad leaders, right down to the trooper on the street.
We do this yearly and sometimes twice a year on our own as a unit. But we go to different type of schools like here at the CDP and receive other training, and you can't never get enough training.
There are 4 special operations units within the state. The training helps to make sure that troopers protect everyone's constitutional rights.
But the way I read it is they were sort of making that Unicorn Riot had attained this secret document through Freedom of Information Acts and was releasing it to its members or to the public as sort of the art of war, which is a little bit what I have done there. But unlike you telling it that I obtained it through the Department of Corrections, I'm telling you, you just have to go to Google and put FEMA Field Force Operations in a search bar and you can find all the information I need. But let's go down to the bottom. I do like to tend to do that rather than leave you waiting. And as again, if you want to, you can stop and click on this at your own leisure, but you can look at some of the munitions and weapons or non-lethal weapons that they use. And there is again the picture of the Center of Domestic Preparedness and the header to FEMA Force Operations training manual that we've already looked at. But let's read this bit. FEMA and military activation is expected at the Trump inauguration on January the 20th. That probably, and I think it did actually happen. But there is another video there at the bottom talking about national security events, civil disturbance mobilization, FEMA and domestic military command structures, how to stop riots. I guess there's a picture of a tree, a tweet there from Twitter. Declare a state of emergency, impose early curfew, mobilize the National Guard and authorize all non-lethal force, and 5 tear gas. Federalized domestic military activity under figures like Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark or Rudy Giuliani could unfold during a Trump presidency. Although we know that didn't happen, but the seeds are planted and all the documentation and all the executive orders are pre-signed and ready to go if FEMA do need to jump into action as part of a domestic civil unrest scenario. But that is it, guys. That does conclude this deep dive into FEMA Field Force operations. Again, FEMA Field Force 666 in basic numerology. Field Force, double F, false flag. Is it a code? We've heard about drills and exercises. Even, what did they call them? Role-playing victim actors or something along those lines. Another way to say crisis actors. But there was a lot of information for you, your educational purposes. And I've already said more than once in this stream, this information isn't exactly very entertaining, although I do my best to try and at least edit it and make it somewhat presentable, and did provide you with a few videos to break up the monotony of me talking over and over and over again. But all that remains for me to say in this stream is thank you to however many regular offenders did tune in to this live premiere, or who will tune in subsequently, for watching NoOneWatchesArDee FEMA Field Force operations. And until the next installment brought to you from Shit Video Productions, please remember to take care until next time, and let's hope and ask that the Force will be with us all, and more importantly, guys, please be excellent to each other. That's it. Ardy signing out. We'll see you in the next one. Take care till then.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
Be excellent to each other.